US President Donald Trump is sending National Guard troops to various cities across the United States, from Los Angeles to Chicago to Portland. Now, this decision is politically and legally fraught. In fact, in many of these cases, federal judges have ruled that President Trump does not have the powers to make the military do police duty. But Trump is using a 200-year-old Insurrection Act to justify his move. But the real reason is political. Many of these cities are run by Democrats. Here's why this is becoming America's ultimate showdown in 2025.
Okay, hello. It's a healthy, attractive-looking group of people.
US President Donald Trump's plan to send federal troops and National Guard units into several major American cities has ignited a fierce national debate. It is a debate that sits at the intersection of law, politics, and the fragile norms of American federalism. The move, which has been defended by the White House, is an effort to restore law and order in cities that it claims are overrun by crime. But at the other end, it is being denounced by governors and mayors across the country. They see this as a constitutional overreach which threatens to militarize domestic politics. Beneath the legal wrangling, there is a deeper political play. It's a test of how far a populist president like Trump can go in asserting control over America's urban centers. Most of these cities, from Chicago to Los Angeles, are all governed by Democrats. Trump has framed the deployment of the military as a matter of necessity. In speeches and in his social media posts, Trump has portrayed these Democrat-run cities, whether it's Chicago, Portland, Los Angeles, and even Philadelphia, as symbols of decline. Trump argues that these are places where liberal governance has failed and crime rates have surged. The language that Trump uses evokes the same rhetoric of American carnage which powered his first presidential campaign, and it still resonates with his base. To his supporters, deploying troops signals strength, resolve, and a refusal to let woke city leaders dictate terms to Washington. It is about making America's cities great again.
So when you look at Chicago, they've had probably 50 murders in the last 6 or 7 months, 8 months. Many, many people shot, like 30, 40, 50 people shot. Didn't die, but they've been shot. It's like a war zone. And then I listen to the governor and the mayor get up and say how they have it under control. They don't. It's probably worse than almost any city in the world. You could go to Afghanistan. You can go to a lot of different places, and they probably marvel at how much crime we have.
But critics see something else entirely. They view the military deployments as a political stunt, an effort to manufacture a crisis and then project the image of a wartime president. The targets, too, are telling. Almost all of these are Democratic strongholds. They are home to governors and mayors who have openly defied Trump on immigration and policing and crime. By sending troops into these cities, whether it's Los Angeles or Chicago, Trump is not just challenging the competence of these Democrats, he's challenging their legitimacy. The legal foundation for this Trump gambit is based on the Insurrection Act of 1807. It's a 200-year-old law in America which allows the president to deploy the military domestically. But there are certain conditions that have to be met. It can only be in cases of rebellion, insurrection, or when the state authorities are unable or unwilling to enforce federal law. The act has been invoked very sparingly in American history. Dwight Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy used it to enforce desegregation orders in the South of America. Once it was used by Lyndon Johnson during the urban riots in the 1960s, and most recently it was used in Los Angeles during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. But even that was over 30 years ago. Each invocation of the Insurrection Act came with genuine breakdowns of public order. Trump, on the other hand, is using the Insurrection Act, and it appears to be more preventive rather than reactive.
The president is using his authority as Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Code 12406, which clearly states that the president has the right to call up the National Guard in cases where he deems it's appropriate. And if you look at what has happened in Portland, Oregon, For more than 100 nights, I was talking to our law enforcement team about it this morning, for more than 100 days, night after night after night, the ICE facility has been really under siege by these anarchists outside. They have been disrespecting law enforcement. They've been inciting violence. We saw, again, a guillotine rolled out in front of this federal building. And so the president wants to ensure that our federal buildings and our assets are protected.
Now, under normal circumstances, the American Constitution forbids the use of military for domestic law enforcement. That's the job of the police, not that of the military. The Insurrection Act provides a legal exception to that, but that exception was never meant to give presidents a carte blanche to deploy troops wherever they see fit. Courts have to authorize it, and they require evidence that local authorities have lost control of law and order, or that federal law cannot be enforced. So far, Trump's justification, whether it's in cities like Portland or Philadelphia, is that they have failed to curb rampant lawlessness. That is not quite backed by data. It's more rhetoric than reality. In fact, violent crime rates in many of these cities, while it's serious, it is not at the levels where it would be legally qualified as an insurrection. In fact, crime data from across the US over the last few years, particularly in the last decade, it's been showing that crime across major cities has actually been falling, not rising. And already the judiciary is pushing back against Trump. Federal judges from Los Angeles to Portland have all issued injunctions against the deployment of troops, rulings that the administration have challenged in appeals courts. In Los Angeles, for example, a federal court found that the U.S. Marines were performing police functions under a presidential order. They found it a clear breach of the law. Legal challenges also exist in Illinois, Pennsylvania, and New York. In fact, these rulings underscore the tension between the executive and the judiciary. Politically, though, Trump may not be aiming for court victories. The optics of the confrontation, the images of the troops in their military gear standing outside city halls, governors who are railing about federal overreach, and then conservative media praising Trump and his decisive leadership, all of this is imagery, all of this is political theater which plays well to his base. For Trump's base, the sight of federal government asserting control over liberal cities, that plays into the narrative of a president who's decisive, who acts while others dither. It transforms abstract debates about federalism into a more vivid, televised battle between law and order.
I refuse to let Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, and Gregory Bovino continue on this march toward autocracy. Their plan all along has been to cause chaos, and then they can use that chaos to consolidate Donald Trump's power. They think they can fool us all into thinking that the way to get out of this crisis that they created is to give them free rein. Well, that plan will only work if we let it. The state of Illinois is going to use every lever at our disposal to resist this power grab and get Noem's thugs the hell out of Chicago. I'm not afraid. I am not afraid, and I won't back down.
That calculation explains why the targets that Trump has chosen are politically strategic. The list of cities that Trump has signaled out reads like a democratic map of America. Metropolises that not only vote blue, but have also served as cultural and economic centers of liberalism. By casting these cities as failed states within a failing nation, Trump stokes resentment among rural and suburban voters who are his main base. Basically, he's sending the message to them that the Democratic Party cannot govern. The move also forces Democratic leaders to get into a political battle. If they resist these deployments and risk being accused of tolerating disorder, or they can cooperate and risk legitimizing tyranny. And yet, Trump's strategy carries some profound risks. The use of military force on American soil can quickly backfire. The sight of armed troops in American streets may even unsettle some of Trump's supporters. They are clearly not backers of martial law. Historically, presidents who have overreached domestically using federal power or using the military, whether it's Abraham Lincoln and his suspension of habeas corpus during the Civil War, or Richard Nixon using the intelligence agencies for political ends, both of them face severe institutional pushback. Trump could meet the same fate as Lincoln or Nixon.